Hi, I'm Jennifer Runyon at Intersolar North America 2011, and my guest right now is Ron Van Dell, who is CEO of SolarBridge. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Pleasure
coming
to be
out.
here.
Great, I'm glad you could come. So my topic at this show for this video series is balance of systems cost reductions. As module prices have continued to drop, there's been a little bit more focus on how we're going to reduce the cost in the balance of systems. So SolarBridge is a maker of a microinverter. And so my first question to you, Ron, is analysts are predicting that inverter costs overall are going to drop about 8% in the next 5 years. So first of all, does that sound about right to you? And then second of all, do you see the microinverter gaining more of a market share over central inverters as time goes on?
Well, I think in terms of inverter prices in general, 8% over several years would actually be essentially flat. Mm-hmm. And I think this is probably indicative of a fairly mature technology, as you would see in central inverters and string inverters. Pretty much just incremental gains are possible there. Microinverters, on the other hand, are clearly gaining share and growing in volume and really racing down a learning curve as a new technology. So I think you'll see prices fall much faster in microinverters as a new technology as volumes ramp up over the next few years compared to central inverters.
Right, interesting. So how important is innovation then in the inverter industry? Obviously microinverters are an innovation that came about a couple of years ago.
Well, it's a great question because, frankly, from an overall PV industry perspective, power conversion and inverters in particular has not had that much attention. This is a bit surprising because it's pretty fundamental to the system. It's the number one cause of downtime in the systems is actually the power electronics. It has a huge impact on overall system economics, and so I think the reason you're seeing a lot of attention in inverters and a lot of innovation in microinverters in particular now is because the solar panels themselves have come way down in cost. What's happened in modules and cells has gotten us closer and closer to grid parity, but now that curve is flattening out. And it's flattening out in areas like installation cost and replacement costs that aren't really following Moore's law. They're not following semiconductor kinds of economics, and power conversion can actually impact both of those large components of cost going forward.
Right. Excellent. Some analysts are predicting consolidation in the BOS industry. Is that something that you see going forward?
Well, I think it'd probably be good to have the innovation play out first. Particularly in microinverters and in the area where SolarBridge is focused on AC modules. I think you're going to see a few companies that will lead and will dominate that space for a while. As usually happens in the venture capital world, many companies will get funded somewhat after the fact, and there may be consolidation eventually. But right now, this AC modules in particular is a brand new category, and I think we've got to see how that plays out before we get into consolidation.
All right, fair enough. How important is standardization, though, in the industry?
Well, I think standardization is huge, and frankly, standardization seems to not be something the solar industry has been all that comfortable with in general. I think there is a lot of what I call razors and blades strategies out there where people would like to have kind of a proprietary silo sort of approach and think that drives gains for them as an individual company. But in my experience, that actually leads to new technologies being adopted very slowly. And so SolarBridge, working with SunPower, working with a number of other companies, is actually pushing very hard on an industry alliance to standardize how integrated electronics get integrated into modules, because that's clearly coming. So the question is, how can you make that happen in an open industry standard way instead of in a bunch of proprietary fragments that actually make the technology change slow down?
Right. And standardization then would also reduce costs.
It reduces cost, it de-risks adoption, it enables a market to grow faster, which always drives cost. It's really about opening up the pie faster so that you can have a logical value proposition see its full impact sooner rather than later. And we're pushing open API standards on communications and a standardized interconnect scheme for electrical and mechanical attach of how electronics will integrate onto modules in the future.
Great. Well, thanks, Ron Bandel from SolarBridge. Thanks a lot for coming out.
Thank you. Glad to be here.